Faith. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you don't need it.
If you wanna have to leave your home, just mess with a bottle of comb. You gotta make it to the woods if you can. If you can, if you can, you gotta make it to the woods if you can.
Welcome to the final instalment in Steven Moffat's Stages of Grief. Today's episode, Boom, is the perfect bookend to our Steven Moffat deep dive. Because in Boom, Steven Moffat revisits his old ideas about grief and loss and finds new meaning. Boom is about social institutions which work against humanity. We create these systems which are supposed to help us, whether they're religious or economic. But these systems can also dehumanize us. Boom pits grieving characters against a desensitized world. Only with the doctor's help can they heal. We've dealt with many emotions in this series. Today is all about closure. To understand Boom, we need to understand its star. Of all the doctors, 15 is unique. He remembers the losses he suffered in the Time War, the Flux, adventures where companions died. Unlike other incarnations, though, this doctor isn't weighed down by them. There's a tiny moment in Boom which I love. It's this bit here. The doctor is about to get in the TARDIS, but before running to the next thing, he takes a moment to sit with his emotions after the adventure. 15 is at the end of his grief journey. He's processed his trauma and is more emotionally mature than doctors gone before.
Come in. I've got you. It's okay. I'm here.
Boom is a collage of nods to previous Moffat episodes. Like in The Empty Child, the TARDIS lands in a battlefield. Weapons here were developed on Villengard, or Villengard, depending on which doctor is talking, a planet which is also mentioned in The Empty Child.
Blaster, 51st century weapon factories at Villengard.
You've been to the factories?
What?
V for victory?
Villengard. V for Villengard.
We're reminded that, in New Who, the Doctor's life has been a battlefield, defined by fighting and death. A man is shot, and his AI interface repeats the same inane words over and over.
Are you alright?
I'm fine. How are you?
Where are you? I can't...
I'm fine. How are you?
Meanwhile, his dead comrade lives in a kind of digital purgatory. Just like Silence in the Library, people's legacies are being mismanaged by technology.
Hey, who turned out the lights?
Ambulances, supposed to heal people, are murdering them. It's a nice callback to the Doctor Dances and World Enough in Time, where modern medicine was secretly killing patients. You'll also probably have noticed the references to past doctors. 15 panics and starts babbling, a coping mechanism also used by 10 and 11. He gets angry and we hear 12's Scottish rage coming through.
I mean, most armies would notice that they were fighting smoke and shadows, but not this lot, because they have faith.
Shut up!
Faith!
You're becoming efficient.
So everyone had to die?
You are just organic components, so you're being thrown away. You don't believe me? Check on that rescue ship. Access the log.
All these nods to the past highlight how the Doctor has grown from previous adventures. Unlike old incarnations, 15 is not overwhelmed by his emotions. 12 got so angry that he'd lost control. 15 can self-regulate. Yet, despite being more mature, 15 still sees the universe with beginner's mind. He retains the 11th Doctor's childlike wonder.
Fish fingers and custard is my favourite.
After dealing with nanogenes and the library, 15 has also learnt how to harness corrupt technology for good. He reprograms the ambulances to heal people. He fixes the AI interface so that it honours John Vader's memory instead of destroying it. 15 harnesses grief in a similar way. The Doctor's relationship with his grief has changed. Before, remembering all his losses was torture.
I did worse things than you could ever imagine, and when I close my eyes, I hear more screams than anyone could ever be able to count.
Now, 15 has learned to channel them. To calm himself down, the Doctor sings the Skyboat song about soldiers fighting and dying in Scotland. Later, he recites a poem, which I found out was written for this episode by Steven Moffat. Stanza 1 mentions a beach.
I was kind of hoping for a beach.
Everywhere's a beach eventually.
The beach represents our and the universe's ultimate demise. Stanza 2 describes a woman standing dark and tall at the edge of the wood. If a beach is death, this woman is the Doctor's grief, looming over him. The woman says,
Young man, don't you know there's more to life than the moon and the president's wife?
After this line, the Doctor's heart rate lowers. This moment is a nice summary of the Doctor's character arc. He used to find death triggering. Now, he sings and recites poems about death to soothe himself. For the Doctor, death is a reminder of all the precious life he still has to live. 15 has healed from grief and is in touch with his emotions. The same can't be said for the people on Castarian 3. The people on Castarian 3 have been desensitized to loss, and the reason is capitalism. Moffat writes Boom as a Hitchcock-style thriller. Hitchcock famously said,
4 people are sitting around a table. Suddenly, a bomb goes off. 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different. You've got the audience working.
Moffat writes capitalism as a powerful weapon of destruction, which infiltrates society without us noticing. It's slow to activate, but once it does, its effects are devastating. Yeah, you see what the landmine represents now? The Doctor's line, business is booming, is a cheeky nod to Moffat's message. Capitalism will eventually blow up our world. Moffat takes late-stage capitalism to its logical extreme. Now humans not only have to pay for things they need to survive, they're inventing wars to sell more products. This means that humans have been devalued. Making money is now more important than people's lives. Landmines, drones, and wartime ambulances now come with cool flashy lights. And the absurdity of companies trying to make weapons look pretty highlights the absurdity of capitalism, period. What's even more interesting is the effect of capitalism on people. Boom's characters should be in the throes of grief. But because their world doesn't value life, these characters have been desensitized. Little Splice has very slight reaction to her father's death. The killing of Mundy Flynn's love interest barely gets a passing nod. Mundy herself is blasé about shooting the Doctor and getting shot because this is every day for her. Grief is acknowledged with the depth of a greetings card on this planet. People don't have time to mourn. The AI recites token phrases like, I'm sorry for your loss, and the only closure Splice gets is some holographic photos of her dad. This happens in our capitalist hellscape too. We're expected to work most of our lives, separated from the people and the things that we love. So having time to care for our mental health feels like a luxury. On Castarian 3, weakness is unacceptable. Even blindness is punishable by death, because weakness is expensive. We hear about an acceptable casualty rate, as if human lives are disposable. John Vater's AI replicant cheerfully tells us,
I was humanely terminated on the discovery of the fatal condition, blindness.
Blindness isn't fatal.
You literally just said that to a dead blind guy.
This man smiling about his own murder speaks to a world where humanity is second to productivity. As you watch Boom, fog blurs your vision. Mundy mistakes it for a kind of sentient enemy. This fog is a symbol of how capitalism has blinded these characters to truth. And this is where we get to a fun conversation about faith. Please bear with me. So, Boom compares spiritual faith to blind faith, and shows how one is healthy while the other is dangerous. As the Doctor points out, faith has been used to justify atrocities throughout human history.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
This is not to say that religious people are ignorant or hateful. Rather, we use institutions like capitalism, religion, or pseudoscience to justify doing really terrible things to each other. Moffat even pokes fun at this contradiction between religions which preach love thy neighbour and warfare with the line,
Watch out, we come in peace.
faith can enrich the spirit and build empathy. However, in this sci-fi context, faith has been appropriated and weaponized to control the population. They've been taught to accept their loved ones dying without question because
Faith.
the abuse of religion is something Moffat writes about a lot.
Or it would be if God were not a ludicrous fantasy designed to provide a career opportunity for the family idiot.
And I know that fans were understandably upset at the Doctor insulting faith in this episode. I'm a very opinionated, non-religious person, so please take my opinion with a grain of salt and, of course, listen to religious people's views on this topic above mine. But I think Moffat meant to criticise not specifically religion, but people who are influenced by corrupt organisations and don't think critically. Because to be clear, it's possible to have faith in something and still possess critical faculties. But by only mentioning the church and no other corrupt organisations, Moffat's wrongly implied that this is a problem specific to religion, when really it's a human problem. It always has been. In Boom, Moffat depicts capitalism as a ticking bomb. It destroys everything by devaluing lives. However, capitalism has only gotten this far because people have stopped thinking critically. They've become desensitized to violence, death, and their own feelings. So they can no longer fully participate in the human experience. Okay, so I've faffed on about grief and capitalism, and you're probably wondering, Lingua, how on earth do these two things tie together? Well, in Boom, Steven Moffat shows how capitalism can devalue human life, right? Well, grief in this episode is a reminder of how important that life is. Institutions like capitalism and faith should serve humanity. However, they only work if they value people over profit or power.
Feed the birds, touch the bird.
This is the difference between an economy serving the people and people serving the economy. This is the difference between faith and brainwashing. Characters like the Doctor and Splice make systems work for instead of against them. In a way, the Doctor and Splice have both come of age in battle, and it's made them appreciate life. As the Doctor says, everyone's dead eventually, so every life is precious. The episode then brings this point home by killing Ruby mid-episode. We, the viewers, can accept John Vader's death because, like the people on screen, we're desensitized to side characters dying. In Doctor Who, it happens all the time. Ruby's death forces us to sit with shock and sadness. When she's brought back to life, we're relieved and appreciate life more deeply. Or at least, this is how Ruby's death would affect me if I hadn't seen Moffat kill and then unkill Rory and Clara at least 50 million times. The Doctor and Splice remind AI John that he's a father. This convinces him to override the system. The AI realizes that Veta is important, not as a commodity, but as a person who met Antelope and loved his little girl. Likewise, Ruby's moment with the snow helps her tap into grief and love for a mother she never knew. This, for Ruby, re-emphasizes how important her mum is to her, and to Sutek as well, apparently. It's people, not profit, who make life meaningful. Thanks to Ruby, the Doctor, Splice, and John Veta, everyone is once again not just saved, but saved. Because now everyone knows that they have value. The doctor acknowledges that even though it can be abused, faith is important. Splice's faith helps her feel connected to her dad.
He's just dead. He's not gone.
Before the credits, a snowflake drifts past camera. Yes, grief is hard, but it's also necessary. Grief reminds us that, just like a snowflake, every life is fragile and precious. On a bad day, I read a book called How to Be Sick. In it, Tony Bernard writes about a glass. Can you prevent something that's breakable from breaking? It will break sooner or later. If you don't break it, someone else will. Penetrating the truth of these things, we see that this glass is already broken. Whenever you use this glass, you should reflect that it's already broken. Whenever its time is up, it will break. Use the glass, look after it until the day when it slips out of your hand and shatters. No problem. Why not? Because you saw its brokenness before it broke. Steven Moffat's characters come to pretty much the same conclusion. Having had centuries to reflect, 15 is at peace. All his losses still hurt, but he can now see them as part of life's greater pattern. 15 uses grief as motivation to laugh hard, run fast, and be kind. Life is precious, and everywhere is a beach eventually. Thanks for watching Lingua Anomaly. Don't forget that overthinking is a superpower, and there is beauty in the way that you think. Be kind to yourselves out there. So having time to care for our mental health. What? I was going to say mental wealth. Boom is like a collage of nodes. Oh dear, try again. Moffat takes late-stage capitalism. What was that? This happens in our capitalist headscape. So, Boom confers? What are you talking about now?